Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Excited. It's draft week. We're getting down to the nitty gritty, trying to get those last mock drafts out so people can judge us forever about how wrong we were. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Mock drafts. I almost tweeted out today. Mock drafts are the most pointless thing, and they're also the most fun thing to do. Just to come up with different scenarios that are happening in the draft. This is my favorite time. Draft season is the best season, and we're almost done with it. So I'm gonna cherish these last 5-6 days, and really, dive in. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're actually diving into some of the rumors that have surrounded the NFL draft. We're going to do a little bit of a temperature check, give some ratings or some classifications on a ton of these draft rumors, and kind of sift through what we think might be smoke or what we think is actually real and happening. But first, obviously, let's not bury the lead. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. Randy, can you give me the trade details, please?
Yeah, it's a little bit more extensive than we kind of thought it would be. So Packers traded Aaron Rodgers, the 15th pick this year and the 170th pick this year, to the Jets for the 13th pick, the 42nd pick, the 207th pick, and a conditional second next year. It's reported that it becomes a first if Rodgers plays 65% of this season.
Is it this season? That's what I was going to ask. Is it this season?
Because the 24 draft happens before next season.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh, that's silly. Yeah, of course.
So that's gonna be 65% of the total year snaps, I would have to assume.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a lot. That is a lot for a quarterback that flirted with retirement. I understand if you think that pushes you over the edge, but that's a lot. I figured it would be the 42nd overall pick and then like a 4th rounder or a 5th rounder, somewhere around there, and that'd be good. I don't know. Do you think this is too much?
No, not necessarily. Because I mean, in a sense, the Packers traded the 15 pick and 170 to go up to 13 and get us in 207. So those are just pick swaps. And then they get the 42nd pick, and then they get at least a second next year, if not a first. Yeah. So in my mind, this is either a 2 and a 1 or 2 2s for Aaron Rodgers. And then to get the deal to be greased, there was a sweetener of pick swaps.
Sure. See, I just feel like a 2 and a 1 is too much for me. I wouldn't pay that.
Agreed. Like a 2 and a 3, I'm kind of comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that's why me and you constantly were conditional 4th, plays, even if it was that, plays 50% of snaps as the 3rd, something like that, to where you're not punished if he only plays one season because it's Aaron Rodgers. Let's be clear. I would expect him to play 2 years here for the Jets, but that's not guaranteed. And if he's followed along the path, he's going to be laundering money soon. So we need to keep an eye on that.
And also in Minnesota.
Shout outs there.
Yeah, he'll be in Minnesota soon.
And Kirk Cousins deals up after this year.
It's really funny. It's really crazy, the parallels.
Yeah, it's not great. So that's why I think it's a bit much for the Jets, just because of the chance that Rodgers doesn't play for you next year. So there's a good chance you spend a second and a first for a 1-year rental of a 41-year-old quarterback.
And in the AFC, where Does Aaron Rodgers push them into Super Bowl contention?
I'd argue he locks them into high playoff contention.
Sure. Right.
Because I think we would all argue last year they were in a lot of games a quarterback away from winning, and they're picking
Almost all of them.
and
They're
they
gonna
were picking at 13. So that's not far off in playoffs already. You get a very big upgrade at quarterback, and even in short term, and
Yeah.
then you figure it out.
Yeah. Man, poor Zach Wilson. He should have never been the pick. That was a wild, wild decision. That and now they pay for it. They had to go out. I mean, imagine this team with Justin Fields. Like that. I kept thinking that last
Oh,
year. Like, or
yeah.
even Trey
Imagine
Lance,
this.
a
I
healthy
mean,
Trey Lance.
if they, in plain and simple, if they had Mac Jones, they make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, for sure. All right, that's enough Aaron Rodgers talk. I'm kind of glad it's over. The saga is over. We
Yes,
have moved
very much
on,
so.
and now we just get to hear about the offseason nonsense. And I'm excited to see him in the media in New York. But outside of that, I'm done with this whole saga. All right, we're gonna go through some NFL draft round one rumors, kind of round one, more like day one, day
Close to it.
two. Yeah, we added some things, and we're gonna give a rating of smoke, small chance, 50-50. That makes sense, but I'm not sure if it's happening. And then I think it's happening. Um, so we have, I think, 13 things here that we're going to go through. So let's get into it. The first one, the one that is dominating the conversation, the Texans are not going to take a quarterback in the first, but very specifically with the second overall pick. Randy, what do you think?
I hate to start this on the fence, but I have to go 50-50
Yeah.
because logically, you could have just one quarterback, and that could be Bryce Young, that you think is a real difference maker at quarterback. And I'm perfectly fine with that kind of decision making. I think if you've gone through the process and gone through all of these top four and that's your thinking, the other guys don't move the needle for you. You'd rather punt the position for another year and figure it out. Get the rest of this team up to par because this is not anywhere near a contending team, even if they end up getting the best quarterback of this class.
Yeah.
So, for that part, I'll give it to 50-50 because if we're talking about them taking, let's say, Tyree Wilson, because that's the overwhelming favorite, at 2, and then trading up to 5 for Will Levis, that's ridiculous. No team would do that.
Yeah.
With a brain, because you don't take the chance of the quarterback you want sliding. you take the chance of a defensive prospect that's all potential sliding.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go with makes sense to me though. And that's so.
I feel like that's a diss to the Texans more than anything.
Yes, 100%. So I mean, if I did a what I would do mock draft while I was driving today, and I had like 5
Seems
typos.
safe.
Yeah, problematic. But I had like 5 typos, so I deleted it. But what I would do is if I were the Panthers, I would take Stroud, and then if I were the Texans, I would take Bryce Young. In the reverse scenario where Bryce Young is off the board, I am just taking CJ Stroud at number 2 overall, and I'm mailing it in. Like that is a home run of a selection, in my opinion. But because they are the Texans, and because there are a lot of things that actually do make this make sense. You have extra capital next year. You have the ability to trade back from 12 or 2 and gain even more capital to where you can actually go entice a team next year and go get Caleb Williams. If you draft a quarterback right now, the clock is not in your favor. There was those discussions with the Bears, like, do you trade Justin Fields and reset your quarterback clock or your contending window? The Texans aren't going to hit a contending window. So I understand maybe punting for one more year, seeing what you have in Davis Mills. I don't think that the book is written on him being, I think he's probably a low-level starter, but also he's going to be in a different type of offense this year. So maybe you just throw him out there, you take your defensive stalwarts, and then you just kind of go from there. Now, it's flawed thinking, but the Texans are flawed, and there's a reason they are here at 2 and not picking first overall because of a lot of the flawed things that have happened.
And that brings me back to the shit on the Texans and their flawed uh, thinking over the last few years. And that does add back up because arguably, if you do take two defensive or two prospects that aren't a quarterback in these first two picks, are you picking again next year? That's what Caserio has to be thinking.
True.
Even if he's getting full confidence, which I don't think is the case, but even if he is, he should not be confident in that kind of likelihood.
No. Yeah.
Because at least like sorry. I think I flipped my screen. I flipped a bit. But at least like the Colts, like it seems like that regime is on the edge. And I feel like they've been given more rope than this Texans front office will. So again, if you like a quarterback here, if you like two quarterbacks here, there's no chance, in my opinion, you don't take a quarterback at two.
Yeah. I'm gonna hop around a little bit, just
That's fine.
because. So on that topic, Will Levis has become the favorite to be the second quarterback off the board. What rating are you giving that?
I'm giving that to Zach Wilson. No, I'll give it a makes sense.
Okay.
And it's because of the teams he's rumored to. And we've already just talked about him, the Texans and the Colts. Yeah. So with those two teams, and even I'll throw the Titans in there, I think Levis makes sense for them. I think that's the type of quarterback they like. I think the small rushing upside, people are going to be very confident in. Will Levis, at his ceiling, is an athletic Kirk Cousins. So what that does for you, I'm not quite sure. That's just basically a more steady Ryan Tannehill. I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but the Texans, it seems like that's who they would like. I think the Colts would like that. In ownership wise and all that, I think the Colts were pretty much like any of the four quarterbacks, especially with system wise. And we'll see with that. But Titans, I would think it'd be Stroud or Levis for them.
Yeah. I'm going to give this a small chance. And the reason I even give it any chance is because if the Texans do pass on a quarterback at 2, the Cardinals might not find a trade partner at 3. And so then if Levis is the QB 2 or 1 on the Colts board, then sure, I could see that. However, we talked about this in a text thread. Everything's been quiet on the Anthony Richardson front since the combine. And some people say, well, we're not hearing anything. Daniel Jeremiah, I think, said, I haven't heard anything on him. That is purposeful. I think that there are probably 10 or 11 teams that probably want to go up and get Anthony Richardson, and they are not saying a word about him. And so I know people will push back and say, well, but Malik Willis, they didn't hear anything on Malik Willis after the combine. It is not the same. I promise you that if you go read Bruce Feldman's article on The Athletic today, it was a flurry of quarterback coaches just raving about Anthony Richardson. I find it hard to believe that those quarterback coaches get in a room with the scouts and with, I'm sure they ask coaching opinions in a lot of these rooms. And I would find it hard to believe that they wouldn't pound the table for Anthony Richardson to be there. So I think he's going to be the QB2. That's why I say small chance.
Which is fair. And again, all 4 of these top guys, and you could even go all 5 of the top 5, they have major strong points and major flaws. So there's no, for me, I don't think teams aren't willing to trade up for someone that isn't their QB1 and maybe QB2. So that's why there might not be as many trades as we're envisioning. But I do think that teams are going to be, we've already seen from multiple people that some people have Levis and Richardson as day 2. Some people have Stroud as back end of the first. Some people have Stroud as first. Some people have Richardson as first. The only thing we're not really seeing the change is Bryce Young is top 2.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's safe with a high floor, and it makes sense, even though he needs a high floor. to help him see over stuff. So
Yeah.
it was right there. I'm sorry. So that's like the quarterbacks. I really am not going to be shocked who goes where.
Yeah.
Unless it's like, I'd be shocked if the Titans take Richardson.
Yeah.
But just because it doesn't seem like the type of quarterback Vrabel wants.
Yeah. Well, and we,
And,
he's not Malik Willis, but we just saw that with Malik Willis. Where
yeah, he's a much better version of Malik Willis. But I mean, there's a reason Vrabel was in discussed multiple times last year.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that you brought up trades in that discussion. That leads us to the next one: trades over under. We set the over under at 5.5. The reason for that, so over the last 2 years, the average is 6. There were 9 trades last year in the first round. There were 3 the year before. The 2020 COVID year, I didn't look that one up. I think that was 0 or 1. Because remember, we were like, no one knows what's going on. They didn't get to meet with anyone. There's going to be 25 trades. And then I think nothing happened and everyone was disappointed. But over under 5.5, what rating?
The closer we get to this, the more I want to say over. But I'm going to say under for basically the points I was just talking about. I think the only way we go over is if we have 2 trades for quarterbacks, and I'm not sure we do.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it, but I'm going to put it at over. I'm going to put it at over because I think there will be 2 trades for quarterbacks. I think I don't want to spoil my mock, but I think there's one coming up to 3, and I think that there's one coming up to the 8 to 10 range to get ahead of the Titans.
And to add into this, I'm going to transition into a couple other points we have here because I think they go hand in hand with this. Mm-hmm. And that is the Seahawks and Lions and their draft stockpile of picks. And we have in here either of them drafting the QB in the first, or in fairness, in the first 2 rounds, I'd say, because there's a chance you could take Hooker in the second. And then another point is them having 3 first-round picks because both have not only multiple second-rounders, they have 2, they also have third-rounders, and then a lot of capital past then and capital for the future. So it's hard to bring 10 rookies into camp, let alone 13, 14. So they will be trading up. It's just, do they package a second and a third, one of their high second and a third to get out to the late first? Is it going to take both seconds and maybe a 5th or 4th kickback? Like, either way, I think one of, if not both, have 3 first-round picks.
Okay, so on that front, we also have, are they drafting a quarterback? And I think those two go hand in hand because I also think there's a world in which the Lions go up and draft a quarterback, or the Seahawks go up and draft a quarterback, and they still have enough capital to get back up into the first.
Yeah, 100%.
So both of these things could happen in my mind. I think only one of them is going to happen for one team. I don't think both of these teams are trading up extensively. They might move up a couple spots to get a guy, but that's not going to take a whole lot of capital. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just if you can, especially like both those teams don't have very many holes. Quarterback of the future, I will say, is on there. But besides that, we could pinpoint, like, listen, like your playoff teams, if we can shore up these 2 or 3 holes early, I mean, you can really knock this out of the park. So if you could, as, say, the Seahawks get Will Anderson and Kalijah Kancey and Joey Porter Jr., you would be, like, ecstatic as fan base and as that team going into this season knowing, holy crap, we just reshaped our defense for the future. The next picks we could focus on maybe a linebacker, or we can get an offensive lineman to shore up those little bit of holes we have there. We can get another receiver to shore up those holes. which both teams have wide receiver holes, especially Lions now for the first part of the season. So it's crazy, but I think it's a mixture of like, well, and if they do that, then obviously I think they could still get someone in the third round that they really value. They could package and trade back those later picks for more later picks next year for more flexibility. It's a lot of craziness they can do, and I'm very excited to see what both those teams do because they could absolutely kill this draft, and both teams have history of reaching and kind of ruining their drafts a bit. So
This is true, but now let's recall the last couple of drafts for both of them, and
you got
you're
maybe one for
feeling
Seattle. Let's
just one for sure. But then you're starting to feel like, okay, they could. I mean, this is dynasty potential here,
yeah, this
but
is
but
it's like Warrior style.
yeah. So I think this is happening. One of them will draft a quarterback, and one of them will have 3 first-round picks.
It's fair. I
So
don't hate that position because we've discussed also through text thread, if one of these two trade up to 3, there's a good chance they trade back from 18 or 20 to kind of soften that blow a bit, knowing that they have the 2 second-round picks and not trading out of the first necessarily, but trading back.
yeah, for sure.
And honestly, if I'm a team this year and I have 3 second-round picks, I'm not pissed either because the second round is really where a
That's
lot
the
of this
money.
draft class is. The best players are going to go for future fits. Maybe not the blue chip, like obviously for that reason, but I don't think most NFL teams view more than I'd say the highest a team
15.
has is 20 first round grades in this class.
Yeah,
And they
I'd say
have 30 to 40 second.
at least. At least
Yeah,
I would say even
that's
upwards of 50, like
yeah. So to
day
get
2.
value, that's where that comes in.
Yeah. Speaking of trading back or trading up to 3, Cardinals trading out of 3. We have heard that is a potential option. Obviously, that I think that's clear to see that they would like to move back. What would you give this classification here, Randy?
I'm going to say I think it's happening unless no one will give them anything, which I don't see that being a possibility. I think the Cardinals 100% know that they are full out for this season. They're not going to make the playoffs because at best Kyler plays 8 games in my opinion.
Agreed.
And so you basically have to win 2 to 4 games without Kyler with Colt McCoy. I'm not liking those odds, especially in a pretty stacked division. So for that reason, I'm out. But I had to. So that's why I think they're understanding. Hey, let's get more flexibility. We have no staples of this team. Our only staple is Kyler Murray, who won't be playing. So your only other staple is Budda Baker, who's asking for a trade. So they need to fill out every aspect of this team. They need as many picks as possible this year and next year to really get back to where they were supposed to be this last year.
Yeah, I think it's happening as well. The more I think about it, they're gonna get something, and maybe they don't get what they wanted, and maybe that sucks for them. But also, take whatever you can get. I think they're still gonna get their guy wherever they move back to, unless it's like an insane trade, which we never really see. Occasionally, but like someone in the 20s comes up into the top 5. That's rare.
So the only team that I see that being a possibility is Vikings, which we talked about. And as much as those are rumors, like I don't see how it's possible. The Vikings are kind of void of a lot of picks these next 2 years. And it makes more sense for them as a team to trade back in the first than to trade multiple first-round picks, multiple day 2 picks, and possibly a player to go up to
Probably
3.
a player.
But if they're absolutely loving a quarterback, I get it. But again, you have a quarterback. Is he the best ever? No. Is he middle of the league? Yeah. Can he win you ball games? Yeah. So to mortgage your entire future while still having that guy under contract and really not a lot of places to send him, it's going to be tough. You're not going to get a great return on investment on him, and you're it's just not going to be a good sign.
Yeah. I really don't think they come up that far. I think they could
Yeah,
still come up, but I think they're gonna
I
have to wait a little bit.
I mean 10 makes sense.
9
9 doesn't
would.
really in division.
Yeah,
8
that's
and 7. I
7
mean,
maybe, but even still, like, that's gonna take the next 3 years of first round picks. You can only trade
if
3
the
years out.
if the Titans don't take the guy at 11 that they like, then maybe 12, because it would make sense for the Texans, especially
Yeah.
if they did take a quarterback at 2. It's all those kind of situations makes it weird. And
Yeah.
they, all 3 of their division mates are in the top 13.
Yeah.
It really cuts off trade possibilities, because they're not going to let you cut over a quarterback.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they already gave one of their picks to Detroit last year for Hawkinson, which was a weird
Yeah,
trade in the first place.
but
So
he was their second best pass catcher down the
and
stretch.
he's
He is
going to
right
be
now as
this year.
well.
Yeah.
So
Unless they
he
get
will be
hurt.
this year. So
Yeah.
it definitely worked out for both teams, but that was for a tight end that they didn't view signing long term.
Yeah.
It's not
It's different.
giving up a pick for a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. On that front, so do you think the Vikings do come up? I guess give that a
No, I personally don't.
smoke on that one.
I think small chance, because I don't think they come anywhere near the top 7, but I think there's a small chance they'd mortgage their future to get up. It's just tough to
Right.
watch.
Yeah. I give it a 50-50, because I think there's a shot that they do come up in this draft, but for a Bijan Robinson or for one of these
Now,
receivers.
if a quarterback's fallen all the way to 15, I think that's likely to get ahead of Washington, to get ahead of the Bucks. I think that's to get ahead of Detroit and Seattle again. That's likely to me. That would be 50-50.
Yeah.
It's just all the way up. I'm not having.
That's fair. 10's my cutoff. 10 is where I think they start to consider. Kind of like the Bears with Justin Fields. The Bears came up for Fields when he started to fall. Okay, on that front, Titans, do you think they're trading up for a quarterback?
No. I think it's small chance. Because I think they would trade with the Raiders. I think that's a very likely trade. I think the Raiders have a lot of holes. I think the Titans have a lot of holes. So I think the Raiders would be comfortable moving to 11. I think the Falcons would be comfortable moving to 11. But to get up to 3, I think they're going to have to give up too much that they're not going to see it as valuable, especially if the Texans don't pick a quarterback at 2. I don't see how the Titans are moving up to 3. It makes no sense to me. I mean, to get the guy over your division rival, I get, but man, you're giving up a lot at that point.
And we talked about timelines and windows. They are not on a path to competitiveness this year. I know Vrabel's an impatient guy, and I think that factors into why he despises Malik Willis. He doesn't want to sit and wait. He wants to win, and that's a qualities of a good coach. But on that front, like, just stick with Tannehill for another year and then figure it out. Like, you've got Tannehill under contract.
And that's the other thing. They won games with Tannehill even last year.
Yeah.
Even with some sloppy play. That's the reason I'm not, they're not going to 3 for me. And they might go up a couple spots and give up a second or a third, and just move up slightly, get the guy they really want, and then still probably not play him. Because I think they are comfortable with Tannehill, and in without trading up everything, you could sit at 11, get a tackle you desperately need, or a versatile offensive lineman you desperately need, and let these 2 quarterbacks fight it out for giving you a better pick next year. And then you're not trading up as much to get the guy you want.
For sure. We're gonna wrap up trade talk here in a second. I know that's been dominating. Steelers
It's the
trading up with
exciting
the
part of the
Bears.
draft.
I know. There's been a lot of rumors out there that the Steelers are looking to move up, whether that's for an offensive tackle, whether that's for Jalen Carter, remains to be seen. And the Bears have been a common trade partner, I think, because of the previous relationship and the fact the Bears probably want their picks back. But do you think that the Steelers are going to be trading up with the Bears? Or what rating would you give this?
I'd say 50-50. Mainly because I think the Falcons are an option too, and I think the Eagles are an option.
Okay.
Raiders, there's always bad blood there. I don't know if they move back that far and help out the Steelers. It's just they're never going to like each other. They respect each other, never going to like each other.
So, yeah, fair. Do you think the Steelers are like 100% coming up though? Like,
no. So that's,
okay.
I think that they have, this is under the impression that I think they have a clear corner one and they have a clear tackle one. And then they love Jalen Carter, which I think most teams love Jalen Carter's talent, effort, and off field. Probably not. So it's just fair enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's the scenario of, okay, if we get to 7, 8, 9, 10, and Paris Johnson's still there, and Christian Gonzalez is still there, or Jalen Carter's still there, I think they're very much one of the teams willing to give up 17-32 and get a pick back, or get as much up to little as they can, but get up and get that guy that they deem is the best fit for their roster in this class.
Yeah.
And if all three are gone, obviously they're not coming up. But I mean, I think they have a top 3 on the board, and that's what they're looking at. Because I think in their mind they're not getting any of those 3 at 17.
Maybe. So my kicker here, I guess, is that I'm not certain. I'm fairly certain Devin Witherspoon is their corner one.
Just
Steelers.
Fair.
I'm like 70% sure. I know, but that's mentality.
That's their mentality. But see, like we did this whole dance with Herbert mentality from Oregon too, and
I know,
and he was fine. But I mentality, he fits Lions, he fits Steelers, he fits Raiders. He fits Ravens like that. That's the style of Witherspoon. That's the guy in your face that he is, and I'm perfectly fine with that. He's a vocal leader, and I think I agree with that. But that height, weight, speed,
I know,
the Steelers are going to love.
I know, but what I was also I feel confident too that. So if I think that Devin Witherspoon is their CB1, then I have a toss-up on CB2 because if we're talking height, weight, speed, Deonte Banks belongs in that conversation. And so then it's like, I don't know which one they'd prefer. So I'm not sure that they'd move up because I think they're going to get one of those 2 players.
Yeah, but in the same regard, you were saying that they would like any of the top 4 corners.
Potentially.
But do they like any of the top 4 tackles, or do they really want one of them? And then Jalen Carter just throws everything off the wall.
Well, and they also have extra capital. Yeah. And so they're also one of these teams that I think could end up with 2 first-round picks when all is said and done. They have 32. That's technically they do, but I actually don't know. Is the draft ending with the Chiefs pick?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. I've seen it like posted in those ways. What are they going to do when the Dolphins pick is on there? Like just skip it?
They might even announce that this pick is forfeited.
That'd be sick. I'm excited for that.
I mean, in fairness, they should.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're going to go rapid fire through some final trades before we get to some other stuff and then get out of here. Players to be traded before or during the draft. Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm just kidding. Number 1, Lamar Jackson. Do you think that he's traded before or during?
Small chance. Because I think there's always a small chance in this kind of situation. Sure. But it's like 10%.
Yeah, I think that's high.
That's
I'd
fair.
say I'd say the Ravens are making a concerted effort to do the things that Lamar wants. I don't think they want to trade him. I don't think they'll panic trade him right now. I think they could trade him at a later time, potentially, if things just go south. But
It's but then your only guys to trade with are the people that missed out, which isn't going to be that many people with five
maybe,
quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds.
maybe though, because like, think about it. Say say you wait until training camp and someone gets hurt in the preseason, and then boom, another one opens up. Like,
Yeah,
say
but
the
it's
Trey Lance experience isn't going well for San Francisco. They don't feel like rolling with Darnold, so they go out and get Lamar or something like that. Like, I think,
those are always a chance, but
but also I just don't think he's getting traded. I think he's a Raven for
the
life
longer
next year.
we wait, the more likely he's playing this year's a Raven and possibly only this year's a Raven.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Brought up Trey Lance. Odds he is traded before or during.
25, so I'd still say small chance.
Yeah, I give it lower than that. I just
Perfectly fine. It's a
can't.
tough case of can you bring both to camp? Because the smart play is bring both to camp
Yeah.
and make Lance prove to you why you picked him there, which I think he's very capable of doing. And
Mhm.
then if he's not figuring it out, he's not leading this team when Purdy's healthy, which apparently might be this season, uh, which is a whole other thing we never really got into,
Yeah.
then he can win the job over. But
Yeah.
yeah. But if you want no controversy or questions going into camp, you move on.
Yeah. That's fair. Also, Purdy could either be healthy for this season or not play at all, from what I've heard. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
that the reporting out of that is crazy. Brock Purdy himself said, I might not play this year. All right, bud. Well, figure it out. All right, Dalvin Cook, before or during, odds that he is traded. I'll go
50
first.
50. 50
Okay.
50.
I was gonna say makes sense. I think it's over 50%. I think there have been a lot of reports that he's not going to be on the team at that salary, and they might just cut him. That's why I give it a stronger chance that
But
he
that's
gets
not,
traded.
it's not if he's on the team or not. It's if he's
True.
traded, was the
I think
question.
they'll. I think they'll. I honestly don't think they're getting more than a fourth or fifth back for him, and people are going to be like, "What the hell? That's a crazy value for Dalvin Cook." But like money, people, and old. He's old. Um, but I think he gets traded on day 3.
There's gonna be some teeth that gets him that we're just like, God damn it.
Yeah,
Like it's gonna mess up some shares for sure. But
it'll be the Texans or something on day 3.
Seahawks,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a
that
ton of
would
teams that make sense too.
destroy everything. Uh, I mean, honestly,
Cowboys.
the Eagles make the most sense. I think the Bears make sense. Falcons make a ton of sense.
Yeah,
Ironically, all picking next to each other. Uh,
right. Yeah. I mean, I think this one is fairly likely, just not for a while. I think it'll be Saturday. DeAndre Hopkins traded before or during.
uh, I think it's happening.
Okay. For what's the compensation?
Day 2 pick.
3rd round.
Most likely. I know in the lockdown they had a mock draft series of all their lockdown hosts basically picking for their teams with massive war rooms. And that one they had the Cardinals trade 34 and Hopkins for 27 to the Bills. Uh, and in my mind, that's the Bills and Cardinals valuing Hopkins as a third.
Yeah.
A first, so 34 and 70 for 27.
Yeah, that makes
And that
sense.
sounds like fair
Value-wise.
value.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I give this like a 50-50 though. I just don't know if it gets done on the draft days.
You're
I
right. It happened before.
It could. I really hope it doesn't happen before this mock gets out there. Um, next one, the one that has it's starting to get some buzz. I kind of mentioned it a while back, probably in January. Deontay Johnson. What are you giving this one?
Can I put a I hope it's happening?
Yeah, yeah. You make the rules, man.
I don't I don't like Kenny Pickett. So to get one of the best receivers and one of the most, this reminds me of Jarvis Landry when he was traded to the Browns. I just
I
hope
like
it has
that.
a better outcome than that, even though Jarvis Landry was a massive leader in helping the Browns become a true franchise again, and not just an absolute dumpster fire, at least on the field.
Yeah,
um, but
yeah.
and that's a guy that was really leading a team and their only real weapon, and then they just moved on for new blood, and I think it's worked out for the Dolphins in the long run, but they've made a ton of moves since then
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
where that doesn't even matter at a certain point. So
yeah.
that's kind of, and obviously, I think if they're moving Deontay, that means they're drafting a receiver in the first. They're probably trading the 32nd to get up a bit and grab one. So
Maybe
I don't know
there
where
might
the
be
hell
one
they
at
would go.
32.
I
Chargers.
mean,
I'm calling my shot on the
I'm
Chargers.
just saying, if you could get, and that's the thing, what are you getting for Deontay?
Day 2 pick. The reason is he's got a really team friendly deal.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he didn't have much leverage, but like a second or third round pick, I think gets it done. Third,
Oh
probably.
man, if you can give, if Vikings could trade a second or a third for Deontay Johnson and then trade back in the first,
They
like
only
trade
have
their
a third.
23 back
Yeah.
to recoup that.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
That in theory, they could trade they're in the 80s, I think. So I think
You
that'd
got
get it
two
done.
receivers getting 110 plus targets and
Yeah.
a tight
I
end
think,
getting 80 plus targets.
yeah. And a new running back, clearly, because we both think Dalvin Cook's gone.
Yeah.
They signed Alexander Madison back. So, um,
Tajay Spears, here we go.
yeah, right. Last couple, we already talked about the Titans. So just briefly, Derrick Henry has been floated around. There's a rumor that he's an Eagle already. That's not true. That didn't
Small
happen.
chance.
Okay. And Tannehill, I would say smoke. There's no
Small
chance.
chance.
I would say
I
no chance.
think I agree that smoke is definitely the thing, but I think it's small chance because
Yeah.
like in my mind, if you trade up to 3, you're then trying to trade Tannehill for whatever you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of fair in theory, though, because like having a
in theory.
Tannehill around helps. It's like a Jimmy G.
Yeah.
It's like a Jimmy G, kind of
Did he
almost.
help?
No, he caused a lot of issues, actually. It was
Exactly.
actually the worst situation they could have
Yes,
possibly put
that's
Trey
kind
Lance
of my
in.
point.
Yeah. All right. Let's hit a couple more and then we'll get out of here. Bijan Robinson drafted over under 16.5. Is that the official line, by the way? Did you make that line?
I think I've made the line. I
Okay.
don't think there's an actual line for Bijan over under.
Okay.
At least just DraftKings Sportsbook.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I don't think he's one of their player specific prompts.
Okay. This one's hard. This one's
It's
really
very
hard.
hard because the Steelers could move up, and then that puts anyone possible at 17 that could pick them. But also, would I be shocked if people get ahead of the Commanders? Would I be shocked if Bill took them at 14? No.
Absolutely not.
Would I
That's
be
such a
shocked
Bill
if the
thing.
Texans took him at 12? No.
They should. All of these teams should. I think that's where like
And that's the other thing. Like, we're in no way going to be shocked if any team trades up to 15 to get ahead of the Commanders, who could easily take him and take him there, and the Jets move back again to recoup this as kind of a fail-safe for Rodgers, and then you can still draft offensive line, still draft whatever else you need, and kind of pool your money together type situation. as well as get back in the game a bit. So I'm gonna go over, unfortunately. I think 18 is the spot he goes.
Yeah, I think someone comes up to get him ahead of the Bucks because I think he is gone.
Yes.
I think 19 is his floor. I don't think he gets past the Bucks.
And with the Bucks quarterback room, if a quarterback they love isn't there, I think they take BPA, which on everyone's board at that point would absolutely be Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. We talked about blue players, like blue chip players. He is one of maybe
Yeah,
5 in this draft,
yeah,
7.
not even a question.
So who would you classify as like your blue players in this? Bijan?
Bijan is Bijan and Will Anderson probably be my ones.
Yeah.
Um,
Jalen Carter. But
Jalen
even
Carter,
talent
I have my
wise.
concerns. Top level Jalen Carter is blue chip, no question. But there's a lot of concerns there. I'm not even talking off the field. That's
I
about
can't put
it.
yeah,
I
I
think
can't put
that's the
any of the
three.
quarterbacks in it.
I can't put any of the offensive linemen
Broderick's close for
because
me.
I can't put any of them
I know.
because none of them to me are on Panay level, which is what I viewed blue chip. I can't put any of the other edge rushers. I don't value potential as blue chip.
Agreed.
And the Wilson or the Tyree versus Anderson debate that teams are possibly having is production versus possibility. And I'm going to take the fucking production. I don't care if he played well in a scheme that allowed him to do a bunch of twists and stuff. Guess what? You're allowed to do that too, dumbass.
Yeah.
He's the best player
Yeah.
in the draft, possibly, but in my opinion, it's Bijan.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot. There's a lot of talk devaluing the running back position, and that is a pure running back that can only plod through, only carrying the ball. Bijan Robinson is an absolute weapon, and he's the game changer. He is what Reggie Bush would be in this day and age, plus.
Yeah.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, and that's what like I'm going over too, but like that's wrong, right? Like he's going before this pick. We just don't know where.
He should. We just can't. And I think we both think he's going 18 or 19 or 21.
Yeah. He's also
Or 20.
No.
He's going 18 to 21.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. 5 wide receivers in the first. So the line is actually 3.5. So 4 wide receivers in the first. You go first because this is hard.
So I'm going to do the over of 3.5, but under a 5. I think it's 4.
What are your 4 that go in the first?
Jason, obviously. I think Addison is a clear one. I think Flowers is a clear one. And I would put Quentin Johnson there. But I think between Quentin Johnson, Hyatt, Tillman,
Josh
apparently
Downs?
fucking Mingo, someone's going.
I think that's fair. I'm going under. I think it's 3. And I think there's a massive wide receiver run that starts in the early second.
Yeah. Which is why I put the other part in here. In the top 50, are you saying there's going to be more wide receivers or more tight ends? Because it seems like the league is valuing the tight end class more than the wide receiver class. And I think that's probably fair.
It is fair. So in theory, let me count.
As he looks at his 3-round mock that he's posting in a day or two.
Yeah, that was done and is now not done. Thank you, Brian Gutekunst. I think there are more wide receivers barely. 5 to 4.
That's actually surprising. It's just 5 and 4.
But
it's
in
top,
the top
50.
100. In top 100,
I get it.
It's a bit different.
And I mean, there's only 63 picks in the first 2 rounds, so this is like barely. It's a weird cutoff, but
it is.
It's a classic number for people. It's the top 50 pick,
Yeah.
So that's why I put it in there.
Here's my other thing. I could also see 3 tight ends in the first round, and we're just the I mean, I've seen that a little bit in the media, but also I don't know what teams think of Darnell Washington, and I don't know what teams think of Luke Musgrave.
I
I
think
do
people are going to have Darnell Washington as the top 20 player on their board.
I've been there for a while, and then I kind of pivoted away from it.
He's not on my board. I'm just telling you what.
I know. Well, and I don't he's not on mine either, but I also understand it. Like,
Yes, 100%.
but who
A
takes
lot of
him?
anyone.
That's
Like
but yeah, I get
even
it.
like I don't think the Cowboys do, because I think if they're drafted a tight end in the first, it's going to be more of a pass catching weapon because they're not taking a receiver to really be like a wide receiver two of the future. So to get a tight end that's a move piece of the future, that makes sense. And they already have two tight ends that they like. They might not be top level weapons, but they're good blockers, at least a little bit. So you don't need Washington to sit and develop. But Bengals to shore up that position as well as let him develop as a passer, where you have Irv Smith that could be more of that receiving threat. Packers make a ton of sense because we know they don't want to actually give pass catching weapons to quarterbacks. So you might as well get one that's kind of that. I mean, there's plenty.
Yeah, I mean, Washington makes a lot of sense.
Washington makes some sense.
So I know they like John Bates, but Logan Thomas is old and was not productive last year.
I think they take a tight end this year, no question. I just Darnell, is he the guy? The way when they used Logan Thomas the best, he was the receiving threat. So that's why I'm like,
that was also before Ron.
Yeah, I think they might like Mayer more, Musgrave, Laporta. Like that's more of who I picture them going for than Washington. But I still think he's a top. Washington to me is a top 50 pick, no doubt.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yeah. Musgrave's the one I'm questioning.
I think he is. There's a lot of people that would have him as one, like they're one or two, it seems.
I know. And it's NFL bloodlines. Like it's just tough to find a spot for all the tight ends because we don't normally see it. So it's like really tough to figure out who's doing it.
This is the best tight end class that I can remember. And we had a class where like, well, there's these two are obviously going to the first, and then we had one like, well, he's obviously a top 10 pick. So let's say, it's a very deep tight end class and a very good top 5 or 6.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, last one, Hendon Hooker, round 1 quarterback. What classification?
I hate this so much, but 50-50.
Cop out.
It's a cop out because I don't think anyone sits and picks him. I don't think anyone sits at their pick and picks Hendon Hooker.
What are the Vikings, who've been like rumored to really like him? They've been rumored to like all the quarterbacks, though. I think that's just part of it.
It is tough for the Vikings. Need so much help with defense, and they need a wide receiver too, and they need a quarterback in the future. So for me, if I'm the Vikings, and there's not a quarterback, I'm absolutely like he's the top 1 or 2 in this class, no question. And there's not a receiver there that I love. I'm out because I don't have a third next year. I don't have a plethora of picks. I'm getting as many day 2, recoup some picks here, figure this out, take as many shots as you can on the board here because they are a playoff team that lost a ton on defense and are getting old. They need to replace a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense that the NFL would value Hendon Hooker that way. I've thought this was smoke for the longest time. Like I just can't. How do you watch that film and come out with round 1 for sure? Let's take him there. I think it's happening.
To me, 5th-year option is the only reasoning.
Well, he'll be 54.
He'll be 30.
Same thing. But yeah, you're right.
I know we're not 30 yet, but you just said some mean things to a lot of people.
yeah. I mean, especially Jeff, who we make fun of for being old.
Can't wait to see
I
him.
know. Speaking of, we'll talk about that soon. In terms of we're gonna have a draft show. I don't know what feed it's gonna be on, since we're kind of done. So that means how many? So are you doing a mock draft, Randy?
Yeah, I'll probably just tweet it out without
Sick.
explanations.
Yeah, I mean, sick. That's
Just
the
for
way to do it.
accountability purposes.
Sure. And then we normally do a contest between us and a couple friends, but I think it's just going to be Randy and I, and then anyone who has a mock draft and wants to get in, we'll track it for you. Sure, we'll figure it out. But we
So
have a
mean,
scoring.
because that's just me that
Yeah,
you just
Randy's the
volunteered me for that.
Randy's a point checker. But if you are watching and you want to submit, just shoot me a DM. I'll convince Randy to do it. But we have like a scoring system and everything. Randy, how many picks do you think you're going to get correct on your final mock draft?
So I wanted to pull up last year because like perfectly correct to 3. I got perfect correct last year, and
And one
I
was
mean
like
I
known.
I scored like you beat me last year.
Did I?
Yeah, but
That was my
I
first year
won.
beating you.
Yeah, I won easily the first 2 years.
Yeah.
So as a
What was that called?
redemption, I'm gonna say that I'll get 6 correct. Holy hell, that's way too many. But I'm saying it.
Um, I want to find this.
2, 3, 4.
How many did I
You
get right?
got you got 6 right last year.
Wow.
Walker, Hutchinson, Stingley, Karloftis, McDuffie. Yeah,
Oh,
so you got 6.
shout out my Karloftis and McDuffie picks. Okay. So I think this year I'm gonna get 4 right.
I like the
Because
confidence. And our scoring system isn't just if you get the exact one. That's so
sure. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I like our scoring system quite a bit. Okay, so 4, you said 6.
yeah, mainly because I want to win. And I got like the one year I was like Huddle Report, I would have been like top 3, like in scores. I had like 8 or 10 correct. So
Yeah.
I want to get closer to that again.
I was listening to the last thing before we leave. I was listening to the Ringer NFL draft show the other day, and they were asking, they were doing like, oh, these are the guys we're inviting to the draft room. So we're going to pick the guys that we think are going to be locks to be first rounders. And then like, oh, maybe you won't have to sit here for a long time, which was a cool show. Good stuff over there. Danny Kelly on there, he didn't submit to the Huddle Report. He was able to, but he didn't. He counted up his picks right, and it was 30 out of 32. It would have been the number 1 mock draft in by far. And
Easily.
and everyone's like, so you could have won the marathon, but you just didn't submit your ticket to it. So we'll make sure we get you.
I don't think I'll ever get there. But I'll
30.
try.
So I think it was just 30 total players, correct?
Yeah, it would have to be. But even then, like I mean,
we're probably in the 20s.
like
Malik Willis was the problem
3,
last year.
4, 5. So I got 27 players right last year. So that's the thing. I'm good at it.
Yeah.
But we were quarterbacks killed us last year. We were trying to fit him in.
Yep, and then they didn't go.
Like Breece Hall should have been first running back, no question.
Yep.
And then some corners we thought should be first.
Yeah.
Didn't.
Yeah. Andrew Booth, baby. Shout out to Vikings for finally taking my boy. I think he's going to be good still, by the way. All right. We'll be back on Thursday. Kevin, Jeff, Randy, and I are going to do a draft show of some sort. During the draft, we're going to do a live stream and talk through every single pick. One thing I get annoyed with watching the broadcast is they don't talk about every single pick consistently. in terms of actual. Yeah, I mean they do, but I feel like they don't. Go in depth and give actual scouting reports. It's mostly the stories that they tell about the sadness in their family. So we're gonna go through everything on our live stream on Thursday.
Yeah, I don't plan on talking about how their great grandpa died at age 2 or something weird like ESPN. So it's boy, I'm so tired of that.
Yeah, same.
It's the most obscene.
Yeah. Plus, the good thing is we don't really know that stuff, so we can just talk about what kind of football player they are, and it's good stuff. So,
Oh god, this is gonna be randomly like he's a crack baby if they lived in a car for 20 years. You're like, what?
yeah, ESPN loves to do that.
Like,
Hopefully, they
that's
tone that
great.
down a
I'm
bit
glad
this
he's
year.
made it, but like, I don't need to know that.
It's going to be so much worse this year too, and I'll tell you why off air because we need to go. Randy, do you have anything to add?
No, let's do this. I'm excited, man.
I know
It's a
draft
weird
season.
draft. I'm ready for the weirdness.
It's the weirdest, man. All right. We'll be back on Thursday night for round 1 of the NFL draft. For Randy Hall and Christian Williams, we'll talk to you guys then. See ya.